What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 303 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, September 18th, 2019. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. And hopefully, as you're listening to this on Wednesday afternoon, we are mere hours away from NXT going live for the first time on USA Network. And I'm super stoked for it. It's already been a great week, in my opinion, of WWE programming. Maybe with the possible exception of 205 Live on Tuesday night, which is usually a really good show. This week, not so much. But personally, again, your opinion may be completely different, and that's fine. But I really enjoyed Clash of Champions on Sunday. Thought it did a lot of great build for Hell in a Cell, some really good matches, 2 title changes. Overall, good show. Raw, I thought, was even better on Monday, and SmackDown, I thought, was an equally entertaining show on Tuesday. So, a lot to like, in my opinion, in WWE right now. NXT tonight to keep the ball rolling. And that's not it. Obviously, we have the live SmackDown debut on Fox Friday night, October 4th, in a couple of weeks. Brock Lesnar wrestling his first WWE TV match on Raw/SmackDown, his first one in over a decade and a half. Since March of 2004. That's crazy. That's coming up. He's wrestling Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. Talk all about that here on today's show. We'll get to that momentarily. And not only that, we have Hell in a Cell that Sunday, which is usually a pretty good show every year. And then we have the draft on Friday on SmackDown, October 11th, followed by Raw on Monday, the 14th, a few days later, with the second half of the draft. And I love me a good draft. You guys know that. I'm a big fan of the draft. The Superstar Shakeup, it was a fun, it was a pseudo draft. It really wasn't a real draft. People would show up on random shows. That's not, in my opinion, a real draft. I love me a good fucking draft, like I think we're about to get in a couple weeks. The 2016 one could have been done a little better, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. And from my understanding, they're blowing up the rosters, and they're just starting from scratch, which I think is the best possible route to take here. They're not going to be like, AJ's moving from Raw to SmackDown. Like, I think come draft time, no one will be assigned to one brand or the other. That's what they're going to determine in this draft. Hopefully, unlike with the Superstar Shakeup, which was a fucking mess this year, they will know which brand people are going to that night and not continue it in the weeks to follow. People won't go undrafted. Shit like that happened this year in the Shakeup, and it was a fucking confusing mess. So hopefully we don't have to deal with that with this year's draft, and we can get back to having a good old brand split without all the intermingling. Now, I know Survivor Series is right around the corner, and that may change very quickly with all the brand invasions that we get every single year come Survivor Series time. I really don't think Raw versus SmackDown is a big draw for the pay-per-view. We've been getting it on Raw and SmackDown now for months, if not years. So the idea of another Raw versus SmackDown pay-per-view really does nothing for me, especially after last year's show, which had a couple good matches. Raw won clean. It was a clean sweep for Raw, except for the pre-show, which they don't really technically count. I know I'm going off track here, but I'm just looking forward to the draft, and hopefully they don't fuck it up. But anyway, let's get to what you guys came here to hear about, that being me answering your questions from the social medias, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want me to answer your question here live on the show, please do so. Send in your question by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a question on the post. I usually put it up on Tuesday nights on the page, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So without further ado, let's get started here first with FD from Facebook. His first question was, with the recent announcement that Brock Lesnar will officially be challenging Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship on the premier Friday Night SmackDown on Fox, and with ramblings of Brock being looked by Fox executives and also WWE as the legitimate guy to carry Friday Night SmackDown moving forward, do you feel that it is time for Kofi Kingston's WWE title reign to end, or will he survive the SmackDown Fox premiere still the WWE Champion? What do you think of his championship reign overall so far, and do you feel that this is the perfect time to drop the belt to Brock Lesnar? Finally, what do you feel is next for Kofi Kingston? If he loses to Brock on that night's SmackDown Fox premiere, do you think this will be the only World Championship reign Kofi Kingston gets in his career once he loses the title? A lot to unpack here, but I'm looking forward to the match. I was stoked when I heard Lesnar's music at the end of that match on Tuesday, at the end of the six-man tag team match, which was also really, really good with the New Day beating Orton and Revival. So it will be Brock and Kofi one-on-one. Not for the first time ever. We have seen them go one-on-one before, that being the Beast in the East special back in July of 2015 over in Japan. If you remember that, it was a network special a couple of years ago. I don't think this will be as much of a squash. I mean, Kofi and Brock are two totally different competitors. It should be a great match. Hopefully, if they book it correctly and Kofi gets, some offense in defeat, like Kofi defeating Brock is laughable. I could see them maybe doing a non-finish and then setting up a rematch for that Sunday's pay-per-view. But either way, Brock Lesnar, there is no way he is not leaving with that WWE Championship. And honestly, I have mixed feelings about it. And I can see why people would say, everyone was so up in arms about Brock being Universal Champion. Why would you all of a sudden be so, excited over the idea of Brock Lesnar being the WWE Champion over now on SmackDown? Well, a couple different things. It's a change of scenery for Brock, which has been much needed now for a long time for the Beast Incarnate. He's been a part of the Raw brand since he returned to WWE back in 2012. Now, back then, they didn't really have the brand split anymore. But to put it lightly, he has made very few appearances on SmackDown in the last 7 years since he came back to the company. I remember I was at one of the SmackDowns with RJ back in 2016. It was before they brought back the brand split, but he was on a SmackDown in March of 2016 because I was there for that one in Boston. Great show. He was on a SmackDown before that, and I think he may have showed up one other time that year when he was feuding with Randy Orton. Ironically, after the brand split went into effect, he appeared on SmackDown anyway to attack Randy Orton. They were doing the whole brand invasion thing, whatever. Brand supremacy shit. And I think that might have been the last time Brock appeared on SmackDown, unless I'm mistaken. So that was 3 years ago. This is going to be a big deal. I mean, obviously he showed up on Tuesday, but wrestling on SmackDown is huge. I don't know if, obviously Brock will not become a regular member of the roster. At least I don't think so going forward. It's not like, Brock's going to be wrestling on TV every week now because now it's a normal thing. No, I think this is a one-and-done type situation just because they're arriving on Fox. That's the only reason why they're doing it. And hey, maybe they won't even do the match because remember, they advertised Brock and Seth Rollins for that Raw after WrestleMania a couple years ago. I think it might have been at the night after WrestleMania 31. It was Brock's, rematch clause for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship after losing it to Rollins the night before WrestleMania. The match never happened. It was never official because I think Rollins left or he escaped or Brock went crazy and attacked Michael Cole, laid him out with an F5. So the match never happened. So he technically did not wrestle that night. So the same thing could happen is what I'm saying on that Fox premiere show. I don't think it will. I think that's a bait and switch. You can get away with that after announcing it the night of on Raw. But if you're hyping it up weeks in advance and the match doesn't happen as advertised, that's kind of bullshit. Now, the company has done shit like that before here on Raw and on SmackDown in recent months. They did it when Brock, speaking of Lesnar, he announced that he'd be cashing in his contract on Raw a number of months ago, and he didn't. They did that quite a few times, and he never did it. And now I know he's a heel, and that's his gimmick, but it was kind of sort of bullshit for people to tune in and then for it to not happen. It was a bait and switch. It was false advertising. I know it's wrestling, but after a while, it's the boy who cried wolf. And after a while, I won't believe they're actually going to do what they say. Thankfully, they've kind of moved away from that in the last couple months, but that was a problem there for a while at the beginning of the summer. So I do think the match is happening. I do think Brock is winning. To answer all your questions in one here, I think Brock is winning the championship. Is it the right call? If it's not Brock, then who is it? Now, I've said before, maybe Big E turns heel. And they have him feud with Kofi. Now, again, they could still do that. Now, the New Day are no longer the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Now, I assume they'll get a rematch at Hell in the Cell. I would do the match before then. I would do the rematch on that first SmackDown show on Fox. I would do the rematch then, have the New Day lose. During Kofi and Brock, a little later on in the night, you have Big E turn on Kofi. Now, again, that's purely from a booking standpoint. There's a lot more that goes into breaking the New Day than just booking and what I want to see and what I would think would make sense from a storyline standpoint. These guys make a lot of money. They do a lot of promotions. They're in that, Booty-O's commercial together, whatever the fuck that cereal is they're promoting. They do a lot of stuff together. They move a lot of merchandise. They have their own book out, shirts, cereal, pancake batter, all this other type of dumb shit. And I love the New Day, but they're still very much over as a unit. And I don't know if WWE is ready to break them up. The Shield, they were also at the height of their popularity when they were split up, but they didn't have, book deals and the same merchandise that the New Day have, and they weren't, they were over, obviously, but they weren't the New Day. The Shield was around for a year and a half. The New Day's been around now for 5 years. I was a sophomore in college, not even when these guys came together 5 years ago. That's crazy. A lot of things have happened in the last 5 years, but one thing you can always count on is death, taxes, and the New Day still being a thing, which is not a bad thing at all because they've been a great, huge success story over the last 5 years. Is it time to break them up, though? Do you need to do Kofi versus Big E over the WWE Championship? I don't think you do. I guess you could. That's what I originally suggested a couple weeks ago. I thought Orton would win at Clash of Champions. Kofi would win it back at Hell in a Cell. And then from there, who knows? But they're obviously not doing that, which is fine. Then I thought Big E would either, maybe not cost Kofi the title, but it begs the question, who else is there left for Kofi to defend against? Now, with the drafts coming up, they could have drafted anyone to SmackDown. Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley when he's ready to go. Lars Sullivan should be back within the next few months. A lot of people forget about him. There's a lot of potential opponents for Kofi, I think, than more people realize. And they're not doing that. I do think Kofi's dropping the championship. Would Brock then become an absentee champion? Probably, but it depends what the end game is here. They can't just put the belt on Brock without thinking ahead here. Now, they thought ahead when they put the belt on him the first time. Maybe not the first time, but the first time since he came back in 2014. He won the championship at SummerSlam. They knew at that point. Oh, they knew. Because I remember the reports, I remember the rumblings, I remember the rumors that Roman Reigns was even rumored at that point to be going for the championship against Brock at WrestleMania. Obviously, Roman didn't end up beating Brock for the belt. It was Rollins via the cash-in, and that was masterfully executed. But they knew at that point what they were doing when they put the belt on Brock. Now, I don't know. It's been 5 years, ever since the New Day came together, pretty much. I would, and I've seen, there's other questions here in the document we'll get to, and I've spent a lot of time on this one question. But a lot of people are wondering, who do you have then beat Brock for the championship? Who do you have beat Kofi for the championship if he holds on to it somehow beyond that show on Fox? And I don't think he is. Kofi, there's a lot more options because people can realistically beat Kofi. He's been built up very strong. I don't think it's a waste of Kofi. It's not like he's been this dominant monster since he won the championship. He's not like a Lars Sullivan or a Samoa Joe. It's Kofi Kingston. So Brock beating Kofi is really not that big of a deal. People might be saying, oh, it should be a younger person to benefit. And usually I would agree. But it's Kofi Kingston. It's really not that big of a deal. They're not going to get this huge rub from beating Kofi. It will mean something when he drops it, because by October he would have held it for 6 months. That's a long time. Thank God they're holding out, though, until the Fox show, because all I want to see is Kofi hold the championship longer than Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal should not have a longer championship run than Kofi Kingston. That would be bullshit. And thankfully, by October 4th, he would have broken Jinder Mahal's record at like 5.5 months. By that point, it would be like 6 months for Kofi. Almost exactly. But what do I think is next for Kofi if he drops the championship? Again, if you want to protect Kofi in defeat and not have him get beat clean by Brock, which is what I expect will happen, which is fine, it's Kofi Kingston. I don't think Kofi's getting the belt back after he loses it. I just don't. I think it's a one-and-done type thing. They capitalized on the popularity he had this year going into WrestleMania. They've run with it a lot longer than we all thought they would. I thought they would have him drop it at fucking Money in the Bank in May. It's September as we speak. So that's really impressive. Kudos to WWE for sticking with Kofi. People, I'm getting sick of Kofi. Give me a fucking break. Like, at least they're pushing someone new, and it's not John Cena or Roman Reigns for the upteenth time. So give me a fucking break. But anyway, what was I saying with Kofi? If they want to protect him in defeat, I would have Big E turn heel on Kofi and then do that feud going into the fall, right into the 5-year anniversary of the New Day. So that's what I would do if you want to keep Kofi busy with something, because we've already seen the New Day as SmackDown Tag Team Champions a million times. There's really nothing left for them to do as a unit. They helped Kofi win the championship. Maybe Big E is upset or jealous that Kofi's getting the spotlight and not him. I think that's been the story since the start. If they want to go that route, it really is what makes sense from a business standpoint. Because New Day, again, are a lot more than just a wrestling faction. They have books, merch, cereal, a lot more than just what's on TV. So I know that was a loaded question, but with Kofi, if he's not feuding with Big E, if they don't break up the New Day, which I think would be nice to see Kofi really go off on his own, which I was hoping they would do that when he became WWE champion. Obviously not. I want to see him go back to being a singles guy. I love the New Day, but I think Big E would be a great heel. If it's not that, then I really don't know. Like, I have no desire to see Kofi as IC champion again versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Like, who gives a shit? I really don't care about that. If not him, then, I guess they can move him over to Raw because the draft is happening soon after. So they could either move the New Day over to Raw or break up Kofi and the New Day, which I feel like that would be a really, really lame way of breaking them up by having them on separate brands. But that is one way of splitting them up without having one person turn on the other. I would probably keep Kofi on SmackDown, though. That's just me. Maybe move Big E and Xavier to Raw for their tag team division. But I would keep Kofi right where he is on SmackDown. But I know that was a loaded question, but that's what I see happening come the SmackDown Fox premiere in a few weeks. His second question, in your personal opinion, do you feel that, I'm going to fucking butcher this name, but Khabib, Nurmagomedov, the unbeatable UFC lightweight champion, RJ would know how to pronounce that better than I would. I don't really watch UFC. That name is a mouthful. I apologize. I don't know how you properly pronounce that name. Do I think he'd be a perfect fit for WWE or any pro wrestling company in general, seeing as how a number of former MMA fighters have decided to move towards a pro wrestling career, like Cain Velasquez and Filthy Tom Lawler? Also, any other fighters in any major MMA promotions you feel would be perfect for a pro wrestling career of their own, and why? I can't accurately answer this question without knowing who this UFC lightweight champion is. I think that might be a better question for RJ. Ask him on the Twitter machine at RJ_Marceau. He's a big UFC guy. He would know better than I would. I think there is a real, crossover there between the UFC and WWE. We've seen a lot of people go both ways. Ken Shamrock, Ronda Rousey, CM Punk, to a lesser extent because he wasn't all that successful, but at least he tried. Brock Lesnar, obviously. There's a lot of people that have done both. And that have been successful at both. Shayna Baszler being another one that has been very successful over in NXT over the last year and a half. I don't really watch much MMA. I don't really watch much UFC, so I can't accurately say, this person would be great for WWE. I mean, there might be a name or two like, I know, not GSP, Daniel Cormier, I know is a big wrestling guy. Like, he really wanted to face Brock. I don't think that fight is happening now. I think it's just, the time has passed, the ship has sailed. I don't think it's happening. Daniel Cormier, I think he even said at one point he would love to do something with WWE while he's still with the UFC, do some sort of a crossover. If the Brock fight was to happen, maybe he appears on Raw with the UFC Championship. I think that'd be fucking awesome. He seems like a really cool guy. He's obviously great. I think he'd be a great WWE superstar once he's done with the UFC and whatnot. He's still in his prime, I believe. The other way around, who do I think would be, good for, the UFC for an MMA career from WWE? I'm not sure. I really don't. I know there's been a few people that have done both. Again, like I said, to a lesser extent. Like I know Josh the Good Woods, I think, had done some stuff with the UFC. Matt Riddle, obviously, is another name I forgot to mention. I don't know. I think Samoa Joe in his prime, maybe not now, would have been a cool UFC fighter. I know Kurt Angle entertained the idea at one point. It never, went anywhere, but he would have been cool in an MMA environment. I know Batista tried it. I think he was kind of successful. Bobby Lashley, how could I forget about him? He has a great record in MMA. I mean, granted, it wasn't in the UFC, but he beat a lot of losers. But it's still a very impressive record. It's like 19-1, 19-2. It'd be cool to see him back in the cage at some point. Trying to think who else. I would really have to go up and down the roster, but from at least from UFC to WWE, Daniel Cormier at some point down the road. Obviously, Conor McGregor would be the perfect WWE superstar. May not fit the PG mold, but I think he'd be perfect for WWE. A lot of people said the same thing about Ronda Rousey, but she was a genuine fan. I don't know not GSP. I don't know if Conor McGregor is. He busts the balls of a lot of wrestlers, a lot of wrestling fans, but that's because he knows how to get under people's skin. He's a great fucking heel, and all the WWE superstars took it seriously when Conor McGregor was shitting on the WWE a few years ago. Like, you people are in the business of working people. How are you taking this seriously? It was one of the greatest work jobs I've seen in quite some time. But yeah, Conor McGregor, I forgot to mention him, and Daniel Cormier would be, I think, perfect for WWE at some point down the road. His next question, how excited are you to see The Fiend Bray Wyatt's WWE title reign if he wins it? Do you expect his career to be on a major trajectory upwards towards becoming the next major star of the company, and WWE redeeming their mistakes of misbooking Bray before with the Wyatt family? I am very excited to see what Bray Wyatt can do as Universal Champion. That's not to say he will win it, but really it's kind of saying that he's going to win it because why wouldn't he? To have Rollins beat The Fiend at Hell in a Cell would probably be one of the worst and dumbest booking decisions they have booked since having Bray Wyatt lose to John Cena at WrestleMania 35 years ago. They've done it before. They could do it again. So it's not to say that Rollins winning is completely out of the question. It's a fucking fixed sport. They could do anything they want. They could have fucking Pat Patterson come out, no pun intended, and win the Universal Championship in the main event of the pay-per-view if they wanted to. Obviously, they won't do that because it's dumb, but then why do they do other dumb stuff like having The Fiend lose? Not to say that they will. I think they realize the worth of The Fiend character. Otherwise, why would they have protected him so much up to this point and not overexposed him like they do everyone else? I think it's because they see him as the star that he is. And I think they are going to put the championship on him, because why else would you rush, a Rollins-Wyatt match at the pay-per-view if you're not going to put the championship on Bray Wyatt? So, I don't think he's losing. Would it redeem all the mistakes they made with Bray before? I don't know if it would redeem all of them. I don't know if it would erase all of those wrongs, or right all of those wrongs. It would come close. I mean, they did a lot of misjustice to the Bray Wyatt character, and not just having him lose to John Cena at WrestleMania 30. That Undertaker feud in 2015, complete waste of time. He lost to Roman Reigns a little later on in the year. Great feud, great couple matches, but he lost. The Randy Orton feud, complete waste of time. Not having a walk out of WrestleMania 33, fucking mistake, waste of time. That was another bad booking decision. Having him get, I don't even know anymore, having him get beat countless times by Finn Balor did nothing for his credibility, momentum, whatever. I could just go up and down the list. 2016, what did he do? What did he do in 2016? He got buried by The Rock at WrestleMania, and I use that word lightly, but he got fucking buried at WrestleMania by The Rock. The eater of Hot Pockets, really? Oh, we got a rub from, and then with The Rock, and he was, give me a fucking break. What did Bray Wyatt do after WrestleMania? He was supposed to turn face, and obviously he got hurt, and that's not anyone's fault. That shit just happens. But still, the guy was doing nothing going into WrestleMania. For Bray Wyatt to not have a WrestleMania match is really sad. Wasn't on SummerSlam that year either. So, I remember because I was there and he was not on the show. But anyway, I don't know if it would right all of those wrongs, but it would be a big step in the right direction in rehabbing his character. And they've done a great job of that, to their credit, over the last 5 months with the Firefly Funhouse, the Fiend, and everything else. He's been the hottest act they have right now on their roster. It's like it's not even close. And that counts for Becky, Kofi, Rollins, AJ even. You name them, the Fiend is hotter than all of them. He is the best thing going in WWE right now. I can tell you honestly from personal experience, not just me, or not me really, but because I watch the shows because I enjoy them anyway. But I've talked to a lot of people who have said to me, listen, I just watch the shows for Bray Wyatt. I only tune into Raw to see what Bray Wyatt's going to do next. A lot of people only watch certain shows, like the pay-per-views, like SummerSlam, Clash of Champions, and even Raw, to see what they're going to do with Bray Wyatt. Because the guy's been a star since he, returned earlier this year. So, anyway. I think the Bray Wyatt title reign is going to happen. And I don't know if he's going to become the next major star of the company. Like, The Fiend will not be the face of WWE. But there really doesn't need to be a face of WWE. Who the fuck cares? It's all about the brand. And I wrote about that in an article a couple months ago when people were saying, oh, is it Rollins? Is it Reigns? Who else is the face of WWE? Is it really that laughable to suggest that the entire roster is the face of WWE? Like, for this SmackDown move on Fox, they're not promoting everybody, but they're promoting 5 or 6 different people for the move to Fox. Becky Lynch, Charlotte, Roman Reigns, and really all the other big stars. As they should, because not one person sells tickets anymore. It's the entire brand. I mean, some people are bigger stars than others, but it's really all about the brand. So anyway, I don't think Bray Wyatt will be the next face of WWE, but if they give him the championship, they better fucking run with this thing for as long as possible. And I'm talking until maybe WrestleMania, if not beyond that. I would have him hold the championship till WrestleMania. Why the hell not? I think it'd be a great idea. So that's where I see this going. At Brett Bullet 10 from Twitter, could you see Impact having Sami Callihan win the World Championship and dropping it to Tessa Blanchard? I was thinking about that recently. I was thinking, who do you have Sami win or drop the championship to if he wins it at Bound for Glory against Brian Cage? And I think he should. Brian Cage, I love the guy. Great wrestler. Hasn't done a hell of a whole lot with that championship just because he's been hurt since he won it. Literally since the night he won it, he has been hurt. And he's kind of been an absentee champion for the better part of the past 5 months. I think Sami should win it. He's the hot hand right now in Impact. He's doing great work. It doesn't matter who he's feuding with. I mean, you can have your opinion of the guy. We all know Jim Cornette does. He's not everyone's favorite wrestler. And I wasn't a huge Sami Callihan fan a couple years ago. I mean, I've always liked the guy. I thought they really, fucked up his potential in NXT. They never even gave the guy a chance. They never even gave the guy a chance to get over. He never got released. He just quit because he realized his career was going nowhere fast. So he left. But he's done a great job of getting himself over and staying over in Impact since he made the move about 2 years ago at Bound for Glory. I think he debuted in 2017. But it doesn't matter who he's feuding with. He makes every feud he's a part of great. And every feud that he's been a part of in Impact over the last 2 years has had match of the year contenders involved, including with LAX 2 years ago, Rich Swann earlier this year, Eddie Edwards last year, Tessa Blanchard recently. There's been a number of people he's been feuding with. Those are the ones that stand out in my mind more than any other. Pentagon Jr., oh my God, they had a great match about a year ago. The feud with the Lucha Brothers going into Bound for Glory. God, those matches were awesome. How can I forget about Pentagon? Him and Pentagon had some awesome fucking matches in the summer of 2018. So again, Sami Callihan has been a real asset to Impact over the last 2 years. I would put the championship on him. I think he's earned it. And from there, who do you have him drop it to? I mean, Tessa Blanchard would make sense. They're kind of doing this story where Tessa has now faced Sami twice at Slammiversary and on another Impact special after that. And Sami won both times. Now, it would mean more if she finally beat him as the world champion. And honestly, would I be opposed to it? Not really. Because Tessa beating Sami is not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's believable. It's not unbelievable. It really is it's a possibility. It could absolutely happen. Now, if it was Tessa Blanchard beating Brian Cage, that's a different story. But in Impact, it's Sami. Sami Callihan is great because he's a believable threat, but it's also believable for someone to beat him because he's so, not like small, but like, he's not a Brian Cage. He's not a fucking monster. He's just a really good wrestler, and he's a great talker. So it makes sense for someone of Tessa's build to beat Sami if she's built up the right way. It is absolutely believable. So honestly, I wouldn't really be opposed to it, and I feel like that's the direction they're going in. Impact does a great job of long-term storytelling and long-term booking. I was also thinking, too, what about Eddie Edwards? Because Eddie Edwards, from what I can recall anyway, never really gave Sami Callihan his comeuppance during their lengthy feud last year. And it would be cool for them to go full circle with Eddie Edwards, who has not held the championship in about 3 years, being the one to beat Sami for that championship. So it's either Eddie Edwards beating Sami for the title or Tessa Blanchard. I think people would be more open to Tessa Blanchard winning the championship just because she's so popular right now. I wouldn't hate it. I mean, a woman holding the world championship. Again, if done right, it's really not that big of a deal. In Lucha, it was a joke because Sexy Star sucked. She was fucking terrible. I wasn't a big fan. I'm still not a big fan of the intergender stuff. But Tessa, it's believable because of the way she wrestles. And I don't know, there's just something about, her and fucking Madman Fulton was kind of a joke. But beyond that, like her versus Dave Christ or Sami Callihan or any one of these other people, it just kind of makes sense. I really don't have that big of a problem with it. In Lucha, it was a joke when she beat, I forgot who she beat to win the championship. She beat, like, not maybe Mil Muertes, not Mil Muertes, but like, yeah, I think she beat Mil Muertes. I think she pinned Mil Muertes in some sort of like battle royal to win the championship. It was kind of a joke. So she sucked. Tessa's great, though. I honestly, this might be just me, I would have no issue with that happening. His second question, would you like for WWE to put Buddy Murphy and Ali in a tag team because SmackDown needs more tag teams? I mean, with the draft coming up, nothing really matters. They might end up on separate brands. I honestly kind of expect it. Could they end up on a tag team? It's not the worst idea. I would rather see them shine in singles competition. Buddy Murphy owns a victory over Daniel fucking Bryan, and they've really done nothing with that in the last couple of weeks, which is surprising. Ali beat Nakamura about a month or two ago, and it went nowhere. So I would rather see them shine in singles competition. Ali appears to be primed for a program with Nakamura over that IC title, so it probably won't happen anyway. But yeah, they need more tag teams, and I think they're doing a good job of rehabbing their tag team division. It's nowhere near on the level of AEW's, obviously. But, the Usos are still around. I don't know where they've been. I know one of them got a DUI a couple months ago. Maybe that's why they haven't been on TV recently. I don't know. But they have the Revival. Rude and Ziggler are, I think, clicking very well. They're not a team for the long term, but, for right now, they're okay. They have the New Day. They're building back up heavy machinery. The Viking Raiders are finally getting over as faces. They have the OC. They're bringing back AOP finally, and I like what I saw from them on Raw this week. They have a decent amount of tag teams, but they will need more tag teams when the brand split goes into effect again, and they can't do the intermingling of the tag teams. Like the Revival are Raw wrestlers with the SmackDown tag team titles, which is kind of a joke. But that just goes to show they have no tag teams on SmackDown. Now, maybe by the draft, Jeff Hardy could hopefully be, I don't know if he's anywhere near coming back, but they could reunite the Hardy Boys. They have the Clones. They just fucking released the guys. They have not been on the show in years. Literally years. Just release them. Why are they still even around if they're not going to even wrestle on the show? So they need more tag teams on SmackDown. So maybe when all is said and done, putting those two guys together would not be the worst idea. But personally, I would rather see them shine in singles competition. If they're given that opportunity, and I feel like they will once the wild card gets, moves away, and they need more people to fill out their rosters. So I would hope, that they'll get more opportunities to succeed once SmackDown and Raw have their own unique rosters again. His next question, could you see Kevin Owens winning the Royal Rumble and beating Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 36? As cool as that would be, I don't see it happening. I know Kevin Owens is the hot hand right now. They've already kind of fucked up his popularity and his momentum with this whole Shane McMahon storyline. I know his popularity started with the storyline, but not wrapping it up sooner has really done damage to Kevin Owens. Not a lot, but a little bit. He's not as hot as he was a month or two ago. That much is evident. But I don't know if he can remain this over until WrestleMania. I don't have enough faith in WWE to do that. I just don't. I think it'd be cool. I have longed for a Kevin Owens-Brock Lesnar match since 2015, since Kevin Owens got called up to the main roster. Really, since he got signed by WWE. I thought it would be a great, believable match. But Kevin Owens has been an upper mid-carder now for years. And, he got beat by Goldberg in fucking 30 seconds a couple years ago. He's just not a believable threat to Brock Lesnar. If they can build him back up to that point, then maybe between now and WrestleMania, I don't see that happening. But again, it begs the question of, like we said at the start of the show, who do you have beat Brock for the belt? Obviously won't be Kofi. I don't think Kofi's getting the belt back from Brock at all, let alone, to begin with. I don't think he's beating Brock or really just getting the championship back whatsoever. Whether it's in the possession of Brock or not, I don't think Kofi is getting a second run with that WWE title, even though his first run has been good. I forgot to answer that part of your question earlier. I think Kofi's had a really good reign as WWE champion. People are starting to get sick of it. Whatever. I think he's done a great job. Props to WWE for protecting him, making him feel like a bona fide main event player, giving him big victories over Samoa Joe, Dolph Ziggler, Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, the list goes on and on and on, Sami Zayn, if that means anything. So they've done a great job with Kofi's WWE champion. My only knock against his reign is that his title matches on pay-per-view have been very lackluster. The Orton match might have been the best one since WrestleMania, and even that was slightly underwhelming on Sunday at Clash of Champions. The SummerSlam match was boring as shit. The Samoa Joe match was average at best. The Kevin Owens match was average at best, the Money in the Bank. The Dolph Ziggler matches were boring as shit. The Daniel Bryan match was amazing, but that's where he won it, though. I'm talking about his title defenses on pay-per-view. So my only real knock against Kofi is that his championship title defenses have not been great at all. Those have really been lacking. And I think he's not the best wrestler in the company by a long shot. The guy's good, but I think people really overrate Kofi in the ring because if he was really that good, I feel like his pay-per-view matches would be better. And people said the same thing about AJ, but AJ had better title matches on pay-per-view than fucking Kofi Kingston has. By a long shot. It's not even close. Not even close. The Nakamura matches, even as underwhelming as some of those matches were better than these Kofi Kingston matches. That's not even an argument. That's something where he needs, work on. At this point, it might not even matter because he probably will not walk out of that Fox premiere still the champion. I got so off track. But Owens and Lesnar at WrestleMania 36, could it happen? Maybe. If they built up Kofi, or rather, I'm getting my K's mixed up here, built up Kevin enough to make him feel like a believable threat to Lesnar at WrestleMania. I don't see them going in that direction. Honestly, could they have Roman go back for the belt again against Brock this time on SmackDown? Yeah, they could. I think they will. Now, the more that I think about it, as bad as that sounds, I think they might revisit the Roman Reigns-Brock Lesnar rivalry on SmackDown for the WWE title. How big of a joke that is it's crazy, but I could see them doing that over Brock and Kevin Owens, and that's a problem. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, his question was, thoughts on Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, and do you think they're finally being booked the way they should have when they were the Bludgeon Brothers? Yeah, I mean, the whole Viking shit or whatever the fuck they were doing as the Bludgeon Brothers was terrible. It was bad. But, in the ring, they were dominant, but they really never had many good matches until they dropped the tag team titles, ironically enough, to the New Day. I was there when they dropped the belts on SmackDown after SummerSlam with Alexis. It was a great match, but then they went away after that, and they both got hurt, and we hadn't seen them again together until just recently. But yeah, with Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, I like the way they've been booked. And, I've heard people tell me, I've heard people say like, oh, they're never going to push Luke Harper. Well, no shit. I don't think the guy is going to become WWE champion. Could he have a couple years ago? Yeah, maybe in early 2017, they really fucked up by not pushing him towards the main event scene at that point when he was really popular. He doesn't need to be a main event player, though. They have enough main event guys already. I do not need to see Luke Harper in the main event. I've given up on them doing anything of note with him in singles competition. Honestly, let's stop getting greedy. I'm just happy he's on TV at all. I'd rather have Luke Harper on TV than sitting at home doing nothing for the next 6 months. It's a complete waste of his talent. At least he's on the show doing something. And hey, he's on the show, and not only is he on the show, he's doing something of note. And how long that'll last, I don't know. But it's not like he was brought back to fucking lose to No Way Jose on Raw. Like, he was brought back for a prominent program with Eric Rowan, Daniel Bryan, and Roman Reigns. That's pretty big. That's a big spot to be in. He and Eric Rowan stood tall to close out SmackDown. If you told me that even a week ago, I would have called you crazy. Because all the reports were indicating that, Vince doesn't see anything in Luke Harper. He doesn't want to bring him back. He hates Luke Harper, blah, 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 blah. And then he comes back and is put in a prominent position on SmackDown. Hey, anything can change. I don't think that was a Vince idea. I don't know whose idea was that, but fucking kudos to them because I'm glad he's back on the show doing something. And not only doing something of note. That's awesome. The chances of him breaking out on his own, going after the IC title again, doing that whole thing, it's just not going to happen, people. They have enough talent as it is they're not doing enough with. It's not going to happen. If he's only going to be around until his contract expires in April, I'm glad they're fucking doing something with him in the meantime. That might not be the case in a month from now, but if they built him up enough only to knock him down a few pegs, not knock him down a few pegs, but if you protect him enough in the next couple months, hey, maybe they'll convince him to resign. I don't think they will, but that's a very good possibility. He was pretty adamant about leaving a couple months ago to the point where he put out a fucking press release on his own Twitter about requesting his release. And obviously it wasn't granted. I don't think he is resigning, but if they built him up enough in the next couple months, they could put someone over Luke Harper on his way out. That's what any other promotion would do. So why wouldn't you do that with Luke Harper? I know the guy's not the next WWE champion, but there's no reason to waste him on the way out so they can hurt his stock before he leaves the company. I just think that's fucking dumb. I think that's really stupid. They can have him lose, obviously. I'm not saying make him the fucking champion. But, protect him enough where it means something for someone to beat him before he leaves in a couple months. That's what I'm saying. So, I like what they're doing with Harper and Rowan. Honestly, they sold me on the storyline after SmackDown last night. You asked me last week, am I sold after the brawl on SmackDown last week? No, I didn't see Rowan as a threat. The Roman match was honestly way better than it should have been, to be honest with you. I thought it was a good match, and I thought what they did on I thought what they did on SmackDown was even better. The angle and the attack on Bryan and Rowan, or rather Roman. I get so fucking confused with those two. The attack on Reigns and on Daniel Bryan. I thought it was well done. It's probably leading to a tag team match pitting the Bludgeon Brothers against Bryan and Reigns at Hell in the Cell. And again, where you go beyond that, I don't know. Does Daniel Bryan reveal he's been behind it the entire time? I mean, at this point, I've kind of all but given up on that idea, but it would be pretty cool to have the Bryan family instead of the Wyatt family, Bryan, Harper, and Rowan. Hey, I would love to see that shit. I think that'd be awesome. But, I think that's really what I have to say about it. I think they've done a good job of making me care more than I was originally as of a couple weeks ago. And I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes next. Jeremy's next question, let's see. Do you think WWE should move Kairi Sane or Asuka to Raw to feud with Sasha Banks after she wins the Raw Women's Championship? Yeah, come draft time, they gotta split up the Kabuki Warriors. They've done jack shit with those women. They're criminally wasting them by not having them on the show. They have been not buried, but they have been completely off the show. Total non-factors over the past, 6 months now since they joined forces right after WrestleMania. They got to split them up. I would put Asuka back on Raw, keep Kairi Sane on SmackDown. I saw people saying, move one of them back to NXT. Why, though? They've already done everything in NXT. Kairi Sane was there for a year and a half. Asuka was there for 2.5 years. And they did everything. They were champions. They beat everybody, including Shayna Baszler. I mean, fucking Kairi Sane and Shayna feuded 3 times. You want to go back and revisit that? I guess you could do Kairi Sane and Io, but that's one match. As a one-off match, maybe, but for a full-on run, not really. Kairi's been in, she hasn't been ruined on SmackDown or on the main roster. She just hasn't been given a chance yet. EC3 has been ruined. I'll get to your next question in a second, where you talk about the words ruined and buried, and if people use it too much. EC3 has been fucking ruined. The guy's a loser on the main roster. There was very little chance. There is a very small chance they rehab the guy, even with the draft. I've all but given up on the idea of them doing anything with EC3 of note on the main roster. So just move him back to NXT. Kairi Sane hasn't been ruined. She's not a loser. She's just an afterthought right now. She needs an opportunity to break out and become a star. And I think they need to split up Sane and Asuka in order to do that. So I would put Asuka on Raw. Asuka and Banks would be awesome. They had a match on Raw about a year and a half ago, and it was great. So I would keep Kairi Sane right where she is on SmackDown, move Asuka to Raw, do the Asuka Banks match, and who knows what the women's divisions will look like coming out of the draft. No one knows. They need to fill out the rosters, and I think they have enough talent to do it. But they could also call up someone from NXT, like a Shayna Baszler, or I don't really know, Candice, I guess. I'm not sure. But I don't really think anyone else needs to be called up right now. But, keep her right where she is, and maybe we get a Kairi Sane Bayley feud over the SmackDown Women's Championship at some point with Bayley as the heel. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Going into his next question, what are your thoughts on Chad Gable's push, and do you think wrestling fans throw out the term buried and ruined way too fast? Absolutely. I mean, I just used, during the course of this episode, I have used the words buried and ruined, but I feel like it's completely subjective in how you use them and how much you use them in the context in which you use them. But I feel like the way that I've used those words on this episode, ruined when it comes to EC3, is justified. and buried when it comes to Bray Wyatt coming out of WrestleMania 30 is justified. The guy was buried 6 feet under. There was no rehabbing that character. So anyway, Chad Gable, though, people thinking, oh, they ruined Chad Gable. He lost King of the Ring. Like, get the fuck over it. Like, the match was great. Honestly, I agree. You know, Lexus was pissed. She was so mad. And I can understand why, but it wasn't like, oh, a heel heat type thing. She was mad they were pushing Baron Corbin again. And honestly, I agree. I said the same thing a couple weeks ago. Baron Corbin does not need King of the Ring. I think Chad Gable can really benefit from winning King of the Ring. He didn't, whatever. I honestly think in retrospect, it was the best possible move to put the crown, so to speak, even though it's since been destroyed, thankfully, on Corbin. Because it's a heel gimmick. He doesn't have to have the king shit to get over. But if this makes Corbin a more dominant threat in WWE, coming off his great series of matches with Ricochet, Joe, Alexander, on who was that originally? The Miz, and now Chad Gable, I'm all for it. If they can make him a more dominant threat coming out of that win, coming out of that tournament, then I am all fucking for it. They are not burying Chad Gable. The guy, you know, people jump to conclusions. Oh, they ruined Chad Gable. He got the better of Baron Corbin the very next night on SmackDown. So they're not ruining Chad Gable. So give me a fucking break. He's fine. People absolutely, maybe not so much anymore. It was definitely a thing a few years ago more than it is now. I think people kind of caught on. Hey, I was one of those people too that would use the word buried. Oh, fucking Randy Orton lost to Kofi on Sunday. He got buried. Like, I used to use that word all the time for the first few years of my wrestling fandom. And then I realized, okay, he's not getting buried. People overuse that word all the time. People still overuse it, but it's not as prevalent as it was, I would say, a couple years ago, which is good. At noob_n_co1991. Real quick, I just want to see where we are with time. 46 minutes, holy shit. And I still got a bunch of questions to go. I don't really have to go anywhere today. I'm not in any rush. I have nowhere to be, but that's crazy. I've spent that much time answering your questions, which is cool. I love doing that, as long as you guys like listening to me, I guess. But anyway, at noob_n_co1991, his first question was, with the Kabuki Warriors on hiatus, do you think they'll come back with a character change? Also, what brand should Asuka and Kairi Sane be on come the draft next month? I already kind of talked about this, but when they come back, I mean, we haven't seen them since the night after SummerSlam, I don't think. They lost to Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Or maybe it was, I think it was the night after SummerSlam. They lost, failed to win the tag team titles, and that was a month ago. We have not seen them since, or 5 weeks ago even, I think. When they come back, they should probably hold off till the draft at this point. Just draft them to separate shows. Said this before. Kairi Sane on SmackDown, Asuka on Raw. That's what I would do. Just split them up. It's not working. They're not doing anything with them. Just split them up. The women's divisions need more single. I mean, they need more tag teams too. But the Kabuki Warriors is not the answer. His second question: who will be the first ever AEW Women's Champion, Riho or Nyla Rose? I think it's not Riho. I think it's just Rio. I think you asked me this question a couple weeks ago, but before it was known that it would be Rio and Nyla Rose in the finals of this mini tournament for the women's title. I said Britt Baker originally. Of these two, it should be Rio. I'm not a Nyla Rose fan. It's not the whole transgender thing. I really don't give a shit about that. It really has more to do with she sucks. She's not good. Don't put the fucking title on her just because she's a transgender. Oh, our first ever women's champion is, someone who used to be a man. Like, because I guarantee you right now, if they put the belt on Nyla Rose, that is 100% the call of Brandy Rhodes, who wants to promote it as, our first ever transgender champion in the world of wrestling. Ha. Like, that's a fucking WWE move. They're just doing it to create history. Do it because it makes sense. Do it because she's good. She's not. She sucks. Maybe she will get better, but for right now, she's not good. Rio is way better. She's probably the best women's wrestler they have in that division. She's really grown on me since I first saw her back at Double or Nothing. I hope she will. I think Nyla Rose is going to win, unfortunately. But I really want Rio to win. At Iwagu91 from Twitter as well. Suppose AEW caught wind of the negative reception towards Alex Marvez's commentary, considering that he didn't call All Out and will not be calling the weekly television series, ? I guess. I mean, they probably realized, hey, Golden Boy is better than this guy. Let's relegate him to, like, the post-show stuff, the social media stuff, interviews. I think he does well with interviews, from what I've seen. On commentary, It's not a strong suit. They tried it out at Double or Nothing, didn't work. Okay, one night, whatever. They tried it out at Fyter Fest? No, Fight for the Fallen. Didn't work. Okay. At that point, you got to say to yourself, it's not working. We got to do something else. And that's what they did at All Out. And, those other shows were smaller shows. So they could afford to have, if they had Golden Boy on commentary from Fyter Fest, whatever, it would make sense, because it's a smaller show. But All Out was one of their biggest shows yet, if not the biggest show they've done yet. And they had Golden Boy, Excalibur, and Jim Ross as their commentary team, which I think will be the commentary team going forward. And I thought they did well. I love Excalibur. Golden Boy is also really good, and Jim Ross is Jim Ross, so you can't go wrong with him more often than not. He's not who he was 20 years ago, but who is? So I don't really have an issue with the commentary team, and I think Alex Marvez should be relegated to backstage interviews. Then again, they have Chris Van Vliet doing that for, I think, the show in October. Honestly, doing the social media thing, I think he was doing interviews backstage for social media, like on Twitter and shit, for their YouTube channel, backstage either at All Out or Fyter Fest or both. Either one, I think, is fine. If Chris is going to do the interviews backstage, or if they need two people, if they need two people to do that thing, to do the interviewing, then maybe they can have Marvez doing that too. His second question, with Brock Lesnar challenging Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship on the first episode of SmackDown on Fox next month, do you expect him to win the title? Talked about this earlier at length, but I do. I do think Brock Lesnar is walking out the champion. I don't want to say it's the best possible call, because I don't want to sound like a hypocrite who was saying a couple months ago, oh, take the belt off Brock. It's why do they keep going back to this fucking well, which I agree they are. But it's different now that he's on SmackDown, and it depends what the rosters look like coming out of the draft. And if he ends up on SmackDown, I think more power to him. I think that's awesome. I think Brock Lesnar should be on SmackDown. So we'll see what happens with it. If it's not Lesnar, then who, though? Like, that's the question, If maybe Kevin Owens, maybe ultimately that'd be cool. I don't think they need to wait until WrestleMania to take the belt off of Brock. They have this thing in their mind where they have to wait until WrestleMania to have Brock lose the championship. They did it at WrestleMania 31. They did it at 33, 34, 35. They either wait till WrestleMania to put the belt on him, or in the other three cases, wait until WrestleMania to have him lose the championship. Or no, he didn't lose it at 34, but you know what I'm saying. People think, oh, he'll lose it at one of the big four pay-per-views. Like, not really. I guess he could lose it at Royal Rumble, but you know what I'm saying, though. I don't think they need to wait 6 months and keep the belt on Brock till Mania and then, have him drop it there. He could always drop it sooner, but I do think Brock Lesnar is leaving that first Fox show the new WWE champion. Absolutely. His next question, what are your thoughts on NXT being on the USA Network on a weekly basis starting this week? I've talked about this before. I really don't see it being anything other than a positive for NXT. Again, the whole complaint about, oh, it's 2 hours, 1 hour worked, it was better on the network, blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, you want to see the brand grow. If you're one of those people that wants to selfishly say, hey, keep it on the network because that's what worked, then I agree. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I completely agree with that mentality. But them going to a bigger network and getting more time is a big opportunity for everybody in NXT. They're probably going to get paid more. They're going to get way more exposure. Why would you not want to see the brand grow? And it's not like it's happening too quickly. NXT's been around now in its current state for 7 fucking years. Honestly, this should have happened 3 or 4 years ago. Better late than never, I would say. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad it's live. I fucking hate logging into Twitter and seeing people at the tapings. It's probably my fault for going on Twitter in the first place during the NXT TV tapings. Sometimes I'm not aware. But even after the tapings, people are still tweeting out spoilers from the shows. I'd rather just find out as the show is happening, and I'm very happy it's airing live. And I'm glad they're staying at Full Sail. I think it's a great move. I really do. I'm very excited for it, and I'm super pumped for tonight's show that has a stacked card on tap. At Scarlet1 from Twitter, their first question was, I know you said you don't care to talk about these type of things, but do you make anything of the reports that claim Paul Heyman by himself was in charge of this week's Raw? I believe it, like you said, and it's not that I don't care that Paul Heyman's running the show. The thing is now, and I've said this a million times over the past at least month or so, because I was one of those people too in the beginning, they're like, oh, Paul Heyman running Raw, this is great, and I still believe that, but honestly, we've had some lackluster Raws with Paul Heyman in charge, quote-unquote. We've had some lackluster SmackDowns with Eric Bischoff in charge. It doesn't really matter who's writing the show, in my opinion. As long as it's good, I don't give a fuck. I don't care if it gets ripped up, the script. I mean, it sucks for the writers and for the talent, not knowing what's going on until the show starts. But as a fan, I really don't give a shit who's writing the show and who's ripping it up before showtime and rewriting it as the show is, on the air. I don't care. If it's a good show, I don't give two shits. This week's show was a good show, and I can believe that Paul Heyman had full, creative control over that show. I could absolutely believe that because it was a really good Raw, I thought. Even the Mike and Maria shit, which was terrible, I could believe that Paul Heyman wrote that shit because I think he's big into that type of stuff, as we saw in ECW. I think he's a big Mike and Maria fan. I'm glad they're getting exposure. But this whole storyline of the whole cuck thing, which I'll talk about in a second for the next question, is just fucking dumb. It's bad TV. I don't know who it appeals to. Maybe 20 years ago in the Attitude Era. Not now, though. It's just bad. But I could believe that he wrote the show, though. The whole AOP thing, I thought was cool. That definitely seemed like a Paul Heyman idea. What else? I mean, the King of the Ring match getting a lot of time was really good. I liked most of what we saw on Raw this week. So I could believe that it was a Paul Heyman show. If only because, and I hate to say it, because of the Mike and Maria shit. That absolutely screams Paul Heyman. They haven't been on TV for weeks. The Kanellises have been off TV for about a month or two now, and all of a sudden they're back doing a gender reveal party. Yeah, that has Paul Heyman's fingerprints all over it, no doubt. Their next question, speaking of Raw, did you catch Corey Graves calling Mike Kanellis a, quote, beta cuck, unquote? I did not catch that the first time. I appreciate you attaching the video to your tweet. I heard people saying that online after Raw, saying that, oh, Corey Graves calling Mike Kanellis a beta cuck. And I'm like, oh, maybe... And first of all, we don't know what a cuck is. My roommate informed me as to what it was years ago in college, about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not going to sit here and explain it, but just go out and search for it on the internet if you wish. I mean, it's not like a... It is sexual, but it's not like... If you look up the word cuck, I don't think any bad pictures will pop up if you're at work. I mean, I wouldn't even do it at work, obviously, but anyway, just be careful of what you're searching for, I guess. Anyway, I thought he meant it as he used other words to describe Mike Kanellis as a beta cuck, but no, he literally called him a beta cuck live on Raw, which is fucking hilarious. And it's true, because if you know what it means, that is absolutely what this storyline is. 120%. It's fucking terrible. But Mike Kanellis is absolutely a cuck, at least in storyline. The next question, thoughts on the King of the Ring tournament and King Corbin's potential. I thought it was great. I mean, they kind of went wrong with I guess the Elias injury was legit. I thought it was a little too coincidental to have him get hurt and then have Shane fill in and whatever. I thought that was very coincidental, especially given the relationship and history between Shane and Elias. But I guess it was legit. So having Shane, put himself in the tourney and then the triple threat in the semifinals, which makes no sense. It was a little convoluted, but overall, we got a lot of great matches out of King of the Ring. And I thought it did a lot to really make me look forward to Raw and SmackDown every week for a while. So I thought that was great. And hopefully we get some more type of that stuff in the future. And it shows WWE, hey, we shouldn't be afraid to experiment with new things. And I know King of the Ring is far from a new concept, but they should try new, tournaments and weekly segments and not the electric chair, not that type of dumb shit. But wrestling-wise, they should not be afraid to try new stuff like that. That makes me look forward to the show every single week. Like the U.S. Open Challenge with John Cena. That was something new. No one had really ever done that before John Cena did it. And it was one of the best things about Raw in 2015. So they should definitely try more stuff like that in the future. And I think having it stretch over the course of a month as opposed to one night really benefited Raw and SmackDown. And I thought it was great. So I really enjoyed the tournament. I already talked about Corbin before and the fact that having him win, in retrospect, really wasn't the worst idea. Elias winning would be way worse, honestly. That would be a joke. Corbin, it makes sense. I don't really want to see him get pushed at this rate. I feel like he feels over-pushed to me. But I like Corbin a lot. And the issue is, not the issue, but the thing is, he's had a lot of great matches in the last couple of months. In the last month or two. The matches with Rollins were totally underwhelming over the summer, but the King of the Ring really brought the best out of Corbin. And I think positioning him as a dominant heel, not the coward bullshit and all that nonsense, he's really benefited from that because that's how he was positioned in NXT, and that's why I really grew to like the guy. The same thing happened on SmackDown years ago when he was first drafted to SmackDown after the draft in 2016. He had a lot of good in-ring performances with various people, and because he was having good matches, I cared about the guy. And he was built up to win more often than not, and I gave a shit about Baron Corbin. And I wanted to see him win Money in the Bank, and he did. He had a lot of good matches with, some of the good, and not the WrestleMania match, but the rematch with Dean Ambrose on SmackDown after Mania 33 was really good. He had really good matches with Kalisto, Jack Swagger even before he left. I think it might have been his last televised match was with with Corbin, I think, was Swagger's last match. Apollo Crews, Sami Zayn, Nakamura to an extent. Corbin had some really good matches. AJ Styles. So, Corbin, and he had some decent matches, I think with Orton at one point too on SmackDown. But anyway, my point is that he had a lot of good in-ring performances at that point, and that's why I wanted to see him get pushed. And he was positioned in a way where he wasn't a coward, and he felt like a real threat. And he's finally getting back to that after like 3 years, after 2 or 3 years, because they fucked it up after the Money in the Bank cash-in, and he felt like a pussy for a while. And they're finally getting back to what worked for Corbin in NXT and what worked for him early on the main roster, which is cool. So again, I don't really have a big issue with it. I hope he can go far. I hope this is really what takes him to the main event for real this time. And he's not positioned as a pussy and more as a fucking dominant heel, like we saw in NXT and early on SmackDown Live a couple of years ago. Because the Rollins feud sucked. It was poorly written. The matches weren't good. I really had no desire to see Corbin in the main event. But at this point, honestly, maybe not right away. But if they keep giving him key victories and keep positioning him and booking him in this way, I could see him being a real threat. And honestly, I would not be opposed to Corbin being back in the main event scene, which is honestly where he belongs if booked the right way. Their next question, best and worst of Clash of Champions. Well, the best match of the night was easily Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch. Easily the best match. Revival and New Day had a pretty good match, and we got a title change out of it. I liked Alexander and AJ on the kickoff show. Way too short, and it should not have been on the kickoff. Fuck that. But it was a pretty good match, though. Worst, I think Kofi and Orton I thought was the best match they've had yet. Not saying a lot, but it was kind of underwhelming, a little long. I loved the main event. I thought Rollins and Strowman had a really good match in the main event. One of the better Braun Strowman matches I've seen ever, if not in a long time. Really good match. Roman and Rowan I thought exceeded expectations. There really wasn't a lot to hate about Clash of Champions, to be honest with you. There really was no worst. It was more like a takeover where there were weaker matches, like Kingston and Orton, like the women's tag team match, which was, not terrible, but really just fine for what it was. The SmackDown women's title match, Bayley and Charlotte got like 3 or 4 minutes. It worked to get Bayley over as a heel with having her cheat and then run away. I thought that was great. The match itself, there was nothing to write home about whatsoever. And then the Raw Tag Team title match was entertaining. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good show. One of the better, they've had really good pay-per-views now for the last couple months. SummerSlam was very good. Extreme Rules, Stomping Grounds, and Money in the Bank, even WrestleMania. Maybe every show except, not WrestleMania, but the Saudi Arabia show, except Super Showdown. That was shit. Everything else, though, I think they've done a very good job of in terms of exceeding expectations on pay-per-view, despite how mediocre the build has been for some of these shows. But anyway, I thought it was overall an above-average pay-per-view by at least recent WWE pay-per-view standards. Not the best one this year by far, not even close. And I think, some of the other shows this year were better. But overall, still a pretty damn good show with a great ending, too. That was probably the best part of the night was Wyatt coming out at the end of the show and laying out Rollins on the stage. Probably even better than Becky and Banks, which was the best match of the night. Best moment of the night, though, in addition to Luke Harper returning, was The Fiend coming out and laying out Rollins. That was great. RJ_Marceau, Mr. Marceau's first question was, if you were, quote, drafting, who would be your first pick in the WWE draft? That's a great question. You didn't specify if that was Raw or SmackDown. I guess it doesn't really matter. Who would be my pick? Probably Bray Wyatt, because again, he's the hottest thing going right now in WWE. Rollins, if it's not Wyatt, it would be Rollins. Say what you will about the guy, but he is, he's been one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest star in WWE this year. So it would have to be in my top couple picks, The Fiend, because he's the best thing going right now. I would put him on Raw. Rollins, I would keep on Raw. Wyatt, Rollins, Becky would be my top picks. Obviously, she's still very much over. Kofi, I guess. I mean, once he loses the title, he won't really be that big of a pick. Brock will be a big pick for SmackDown. He has to go to SmackDown. He has to at this point. So, I don't really know if that's a big pick, because I don't know how often he'll be around, but he'd be a big pick for that brand. And then, who else was I thinking of? AJ Styles, obviously, would be a big pick for Raw or SmackDown as well. So, hopefully they don't break them up with a fucking OC again, like they did with the original draft a few years ago. That'd be fucking stupid. But anyway, what was I saying with the draft? If I had to pick one name out of those bunch in terms of who would I draft first, who would be my top draft pick? The Fiend Bray Wyatt. Just because he is the best thing going right now, and I have my money on him becoming the next Universal Champion come Hell in the Cell. And the final question of the day also comes from RJ. Do you sense that AEW has lost some buzz since All Out and leading into their debut show on TNT? Yeah, but that was expected, though. Just because All Out was a few weeks ago, and they don't have weekly TV, they have no more events until the first show on TNT on October 2nd in a few weeks. And it makes sense just because there's so much else going on right now, especially with WWE. NXT's moving to Wednesdays tonight. The Fox show's coming up. That's after the TNT show. That's a couple days later. But still, that's a big deal they're building up right now. We just had Clash of Champions. The draft is coming up. It's been all about WWE for the better part of September. So I'm not surprised that they've lost some buzz, which, again, I feared they would. But it's not like they've lost, what's AEW? Like, it's not to that point, you know? They're not like, oh my God, AEW right now just because there's so much else going on. It has nothing to do with them. It more so has to do with all the shit going on right now in WWE, which is cool that WWE's doing better. And I'm glad that competition is really bringing the best out of everybody. I mean, there's some companies like Ring of Honor that still have zero buzz, but an Impact is making moves. They're on Access TV. It's a great time right now to be a wrestling fan, which is cool. But anyway, AEW, they're not as hot as they were a couple weeks ago. But again, that was expected just because, that's like NXT. That's like saying, oh my God, we love NXT coming out to TakeOver Toronto too. And then come All Out, what's NXT? Just because, NXT TakeOver was a couple weeks ago. And the thing people are talking about right now is All Out, or at least at that point in time in late August. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, NXT UK had a great show. They've lost some buzz just because that show was a couple weeks ago. Like, that was only inevitable. They will obviously regain all of that, if not, most of it, if not all of it, come their first show on TNT in a few weeks. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 303 of #AskGSM here today for September 18th, 2019. I am very excited, like I said at the start of the show, for NXT tonight. Hopefully you guys are as well. I will be watching live with Alexis, so, tune in with me on USA. I'll be on the Twitter machine tweeting my live thoughts, and hopefully my live review will be up. Not my live review, but my review of NXT Live will be up soon after on nextairwrestling.net. And I'll have plenty more thoughts on the entire, Clash of Champions card, what's going on right now in WWE, what other draft picks I would make on this week's Wrestle Rant Radio, going up tomorrow on all the podcast platforms, including, but not limited to, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, nextairwrestling.net. We're all over the place, baby, so subscribe today. But also subscribe to this channel. You like that segue? That was seamless, I thought. Anyway, I fucked it up. But subscribe to the channel for today for more content here on the channel, including #AskGSM, Wrestle Rant videos, WWE Network and Chill, Wrestle Rant Radio excerpts, live reactions from my time at Raw last week, or even my experience at the Skillet concert on Sunday, which was awesome. Check out all that stuff. We recently surpassed, I think, I want to say 3,600 subscribers here on the channel, 3,600, which is fucking awesome. So thank you guys for that. And hopefully at some point we can do some sort of a celebration live stream here on the channel. I've not forgot about that. It's really just more a matter of finding time, because Alexis and I might be busy again on Friday at another show. So there's a lot of shit going on right now. It's been a very busy past month or two. All good stuff, though. All good stuff. And, we'll check back in next week here on #AskGSM, folks. In the meantime, though, like the video, drop in the comments, share the video, and like I said, subscribe as well. Until next week, guys, I'm GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.